Hey, good morning, friends. Today is Friday, November the 15th, 2024, and the time now is 7:27 a.m. So, the election in the United States has finally come and go. And as of now, we all know that Donald Trump has won the election. Donald Trump has won his second term for president of the United States, beating the second of two women who contested against him for the office of the presidency. Now, many people in the United States, this election, as much as other election, voted based on sectionalism, based on tribalism. Basically, they voted for Trump because they are Republicans or Kamala Harris because they are Democrat. Also, many people in the United States, it seems, perhaps, had lied that they were going to vote for Kamala Harris because prior to the election, there was a certainty, and many were certain that Kamala Harris was going to win the election. To the point where not only that Kamala Harris losing the election, but she lost tremendously. And in fact, Kamala Harris performed similar to Hillary Clinton's performance. Kamala Harris won the same states as Hillary Clinton and about the same number of electoral college. Trump, during the last election, won the electoral college but lost the popular vote to Hillary Clinton. With this election, Donald Trump won both the popular vote and the electoral college by a lot. Now, many in the United States voted for Donald Trump and against Kamala Harris because of the anger, in addition to tribalism, to sectionalism, or partyism. This election was the most angry, or the angriest and most fearful, the scariest election ever, I think, because people were angry about everything. And of course, now, given the fact that the election is over, there are a lot of people out there who are experiencing or expressing remorse, anger about the fact that they now feel that they voted the wrong way, they cast their vote for the wrong person, or the fact that because of their vote that Donald Trump had emerged victorious, winning the election. Now, in addition to people voting for Donald Trump and against Kamala Harris because of what is happening in Gaza, in the Middle East, or the potential of war in the Middle East between Israel and Iran, a war in which the United States and the West could become involved in, and the fact that the United States is now losing in Ukraine after having spent a lot of time, effort, energy, and financial resources on Ukraine. Many voted for Donald Trump and against Kamala Harris with the belief that Donald Trump was going to end the war in Ukraine, or the fact that Donald Trump would have ended or was going to end the situation in Gaza, which I do believe the situation in Gaza is not going to end. And for many Muslims and Arabs who voted for Donald Trump, I do believe that many pretty soon are going to be feeling remorse. They're going to be feeling anger at themselves for having cast their vote in the manner in which they did. This is because I do believe Donald Trump is going to expand the situation in Gaza. He is going to continue propel the situation in Gaza. The thing here is not only that the Trump presidency before and the people behind him, his vote, a very significant, influential group in the Trump or Republican sphere. And I'm not only talking about MAGA, but I'm also talking here about the Christian right. They are strongly in support of Israel, many because of religious belief, and many because they are just far right, republicanism. They believe that Jesus must come back, or that the Arabs are their enemy. To me, this is like a crusade. The Arab/Muslim group are probably now the most prominent group or influential group that is at odds with the West or against the West. The West had basically conquered, defeated, and destroyed so many people, institutions, organizations, regions, societies around the world. And because of faith, dedication to their faith, the Muslims are the group of people that continues to be at odds with the West or against the West. But in terms of the situation in Gaza, I do believe Donald Trump is going to go all out support of Israel. And I'm going to call it now. I think Israel could emerge the winner of this war. Prior to Donald Trump's election, There are many around the world, including prominent scholars and influencers, whether we are talking about social media influencers or even observers of international relations of the war in the Middle East and Ukraine. Many have been predicting that this could be the end of Israel and that Israel is going to lose in Gaza. That could be the case and could not. Now, in terms of the information war, I do believe, yes, Israel could lose and is losing the information war in Gaza or in the Middle East, in terms of the tension in the Middle East. In terms of the physical war, I do believe because of the election of Donald Trump, Israel could emerge the winner of this war in the Middle East, in Gaza, in many ways. One, not so much that they could destroy Hamas and Hezbollah. I do believe Israel is not going to destroy Hamas or Hezbollah. However, in terms of wiping out the Palestinians, basically cleaning out Gaza, in terms of the whole idea of a greater Israel, whether it reaches the Sinai Peninsula and to the border of Egypt or not, the clearing out of the Palestinians in Gaza and the people of the West Bank, or even the taking of southern Lebanon, could be achieved. And this is because Donald Trump now has a huge mandate, whether people voted for this or not. They give Donald Trump a mandate, in addition to the fact that the Supreme Court has announced that Donald Trump has presidential immunity. Given that Donald Trump has both the Senate and the House, this man could go on a killing spree. He could go on a terrible activity spree around the world and in the Middle East. And given all that Donald Trump has achieved, the mandate that he has, and the radicalism that is coming out of the right and the Christian right, I do believe they are going to support Israel all out. And Israel could go rampant in the Middle East. Now, in terms of the war, the potential war with or against Iran, the possibility is very strong, especially with the election of Trump. Now, there are many who wants to go to war in the Middle East against Iran, whether the United States could suffer a humiliation or not. We need to acknowledge as of now that the United States is an empire. We are facing an empire. We are living at the time of the most successful, the most dangerous, and the most sophisticated empire in human history. In terms of the economic might, in terms of the military might, in terms of its riches around the world, in terms of its capability, the United States is sophisticated and far more sophisticated than any empire we have seen. And those who govern the United States, many of them are radical, and the rhetoric that is coming out of these guys, the rest of humanity, I do believe, need to be very scared, and especially those of us in what is known as the Global South. We need to be very, very scared. Now, in terms of the situation in Gaza, once again, it is going to continue. There are many who voted for Donald Trump and against Kamala Harris because they thought Donald Trump was going to end the war in Ukraine. Donald Trump was going to, quote unquote, end the genocide in the Middle East. But that is not going to happen because what is happening in the Middle East, in Gaza, it is also an American policy. It is the policy of the Christian right. So the situation as of now in the Middle East with the current United States administration is a perfect setup for the next administration, Donald Trump's administration, to continue the plan. We are experiencing an American policy, and I think many people cast their vote on the 5th of November without considering the full spectrum of the situation that is happening, the long run. But if you voted for Donald Trump because you think, or you were thinking that he was going to end wars, I think you may be wrong about that. I think we could see a whole lot of wars. Perhaps the war in Ukraine may end because it is certain now that the United States, Ukraine, the West has lost in Ukraine. Russia has proven to be much stronger, much more formidable, and scarier than the West has anticipated, than the United States and the entire Western group has thought of them to be. Now, this could serve as an incentive for Donald Trump and many in his cabinet, many of them in his administration, to basically throw Ukraine under the bus as a means to repivot into or onto the Middle East and the Eastern theater, basically going after China. However, my thing here is, If the United States and the West has failed tremendously going at Russia or against Russia, it is going to be an embarrassment by an epic proportion should the United States and the West go against China, whether we are talking about conventional war or whether we are talking about economic and financial or trade warfare. Now, one thing that the war in Ukraine has done is exposing the might of the West. The West is not as strong as the rest of the world has thought of them to be. I think the West is only strong because the rest of the world is weak. European military, European countries, the powers of Europe, have proven that their militaries are only strong and capable enough to go and occupy an African country or a poor, weak, powerless country in the global south. But they cannot fight a war. If they were strong enough to fight a war, this war in Ukraine would have exploded or expanded beyond what it is currently at its current stage. They do not want to go to war against Russia because they know the Russians are not as weak as the West has anticipated or as the West has propagated them to be. Now, the plan here is keep Russia busy, downgrade Russia economically and militarily using Ukrainian bodies and Western weapons or Western bullets or guns, as they've said many times. But if they cannot succeed and have not succeeded, and Russia as of now is said to be winning the war in Ukraine, if the West has not succeeded and will not succeed against Russia, definitely they are not going to succeed against China. China is far more larger than Russia with about 1.4 billion people. The Chinese economy is about 18 times or so larger than the Russian economy. China is a vast country and it is number one in terms of manufacturing power. Yes, it could face a lot of difficulty in terms of trying to allocate resources from around the world to maintain its war mission against the West. However, the border between Russia and China, if the friendship between Russia and China is sealed, if it continues, where China can continue to get the raw materials that it needs to facilitate, to fund, or operate its war machine against the West, it is going to, I do believe, defeat the West. Now, let me talk briefly before I end about the Trump's cabinet. Now, many voted for Donald Trump in 2016 and even this election, 2024, with the belief that he was going to clean Washington, D.C., he was going to make some radical changes. Whether we are talking about Project 2025, which I do believe, should it be implemented, Project 2025 is basically the destruction of the United States. It is the unmaking, the unpacking of the United States by the hands of Americans themselves. Now, for those countries that are out there that, quote unquote, as Americans would say, are anti-Americans, Project 2025 would be their greatest allies because it is the unmaking of America, the destruction of America within the United States by the Americans themselves. America is far more stronger with the number one firepower in the world in terms of war, in terms of militarism. Therefore, going against the United States could mean your destruction. So if you're a country that despises the United States, what you can do is have a long-term plan, sit back and let Americans destroy themselves. And this is what I believe Project 2025 and some of the radicalism that Donald Trump and his administration or members of his administration want to put in place. They want to administer. But let me go back to the cabinet. Many voted for Donald Trump thinking that he was going to clean Washington, D.C. He was going to drain the swamp. However, today it is looking as if, it is shaping as if the current list of Trump picks for his cabinet, his ministers, the heads of the various departments, it is shaping as if these guys are a bunch of swamp creatures. And they are radical in terms of their actions or their deeds, whichever word or phrase you want to use, as much as or as well as their words, their choice of words, their radicalism in terms of what they say. Two important picks by Donald Trump for his cabinet. One being Matt Gaetz for Attorney General and the other being Marco Rubio for Secretary of State. Now, both guys, these guys are smart in that they're a lawyer, they know the system of the United States, how it works, or whatsoever, in terms of the radicalism and the cliche. But I do believe when it comes to running a country is not a business, a country is not a law firm. A country is not the cliche that the American government has become, especially when the rest of the world is rising and the rest of the world is saying enough is enough. Even Africa, as much as Africa is still poor in terms of its ability to maintain its resources and develop itself, the rest of the world, the rest of the global south is tired of the nonsense. Given that the Americans are using radically, they are abusing American might, American power, and the so-called American exceptionalism. Now, friends, two other picks for Trump's cabinet. I am talking here about Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. And these two guys are listed for Department of Government Efficiency. Once again, they are listed for the Department of Government Efficiency. Now, I haven't heard about that before, so I think it is a cabinet position that has just been created or is going to be created by Donald Trump. I think it is meaningless. It is just something that Trump is creating just to put these guys in there, okay, because of their influence or as a means to point the finger to say that he is a president of diversity. Now, in terms of Vivek Ramaswamy, I think he is going to be a talking head where he is the token or going to be that token person of color, which Donald Trump is going to be projecting or portraying to the rest of the United States and to the rest of the world to basically serve as a justification for his support of minority group or whatsoever. But Vivek Ramaswamy has been making a whole lot of noise. And I was looking at his speech, listening to his speech he gave, talking about Israel and the situation in Gaza. And it is very radical, whether you agree or disagree with it or not. What he is saying, what Marco Rubio has been saying, what Elon Musk has been saying, what Matt Gaetz has been saying, and others who are going to be in the Trump's presidency, his administration, are basically just radicalism. They are extreme. I am saying here, guys, that what they are saying echoes the potential that we are going to be seeing more wars around the world, and that the Middle Eastern theater, the Middle Eastern war, the conflict in Gaza, in the West Bank, in southern Lebanon, and the potential conflict between Israel and or the West against Iran. The possibility of these conflicts expanding to an epic proportion should be acknowledged, considered, and anticipated by the rest of the world, especially the rest of the world that is known as the Global South. If Russia accepts American hegemony, American exceptionalism, and take a subservient position in the White West or White Western sphere. But as much and as long as Russia remains a challenge to the United States and the West, they are going to continue to go after Russia in this world or next world. Perhaps Vladimir Putin could be the strength of Russia right now. But the man is about 71 years old. Once he is out of power, the next person who comes to power in Russia, if that person is a push around, the West could have an open season to go against Russia or go after Russia. In terms of the situation in Asia, I do believe these guys, Trump's administration right now is going to go after China, and the possibility of war with China or against China over Taiwan should be anticipated and acknowledged. Now, my friends, I am going to update you in the future, but I'm going to end here. Please tell me what you think, and I want to hear what you think. But also, if you think I'm wrong, please teach me, and I'm hoping to learn. I want to learn about what I'm saying or doing wrong, and I want to learn how I can improve. But friends, I'm going to end here. I want to thank you for being a member of the Echoing Voice community. And also, friends, I want to thank you a lot for watching the Echoing Voice. Peace, my friends. Peace.